So Carol had a user email her a while back. They had lost some data and they were trying to recover it. And what we usually do is we have a test, Redcap test server that is an instance of Redcap that we can restore data backups to. And what we normally do is if somebody says, "Hey, I wiped out data on this day, so if you could get, we would go find the database recovery for the day before and restore it to the test, and then we can export that data and then send it to them, and then they can use that to re-import the data, or do any data entry. We were running some scripts on test this week because we're trying to solve some other Redcap database issues, and so I wasn't able to do a restore, but this person's project had been dormant for months, and so the version that was on the test site was fine. Um, it was after they had last entered data, but before they had deleted the data. And um, when I looked at their data in the test site, it showed that they had 18 records, but when I exported the data, there wasn't any data in there. So something happened with their data where the records were still there, but the data was gone. Um, so then the question is, how do you get that data back? And that got me to thinking, we could look at the logging, because Redcap keeps track when records are created in the logging. So if we go to logging here, and just to show you real quick in the record status dashboard, I don't have any records in here. So I've entered them, I've deleted them, so it's empty. So if we go to the logging, um, and this is a small project here, so it only has this bit of logging, but I'll walk you through the steps to filter out what you need. So if you just go to the all events types here and just click on record created only, and depending on how long your project has been created for, you would have to select one of these. So if it's a really old project, you'd want to just go no limit. Depending on, also it also depends on which data set you need. If it's just like the most recent records, whatnot, those kinds of things. Um, but what you can see here is, so I had created 5 records, and each logging entry has all of the data that was entered for that record. Now keep in mind, this is only for when the record was created. So if this record was created and then I went back and I updated the data, this isn't going to work for that because it's only going to give you the data that was there when it was first created. You would have to run some other query or make, go up here to the uh, update only, and then look to see if there were any records that were updated. Uh, but you could still get the data that way. If there were anything changed, you could go back in and manually enter that data. But what I'm going to show you today is how to take this data and put it into a format to where you can import it back into Redcap if you needed to. So once we have this, the logging entries the way we want, uh, if there's just one page, you can just export the current page, or you can do or all pages. So I'll just do all pages. Um, and we'll just put it on the desktop here. And let me open it up. So if we look at this data, um, all of the data for each record is in one row and in one field rather. And so what we need to do is be able to get all of this out in a format that is going to look like this, because this is what we want to see. Um, so hold on real quick. Okay. Um, So the way we can do this, instead of having to break all this out manually, copy paste all that, we can do it with Power Query in Excel. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. We're going to go ahead and close this. I'm just going to open up Excel. We're going to start with a blank workbook. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the data tab and select, it's always going to be a CSV. So you can either select get data from file text CSV, or you can just select from text CSV right here. And then we're going to grab our file. And this window is going to pop up and just show us what the data is, and we're going to transform the data. And this is going to open up the Power Query editor. So now we have the data in here, and then the first thing we need to do is prepare the data to transform it, because there's columns in here that we don't care about, and we're really only interested in this column. So we're going to select these columns, and we're going to right click on the column up here. We're just going to say remove columns. And then I'm going to click on this and drag it over to the left just so I have the record on the left here. So now I'm left with this column. And we want to get this data split out into rows, because not only do we want each of these fields, so record ID equals 5, we want that to be separate, but we want the record ID, the field name, and the value to be separate as well. So we're going to do two operations here. We're going to right click on this and select split column by delimiter. And we're going to select comma, because all of the fields are broken up by commas. And then we want this to say we want it to happen at each occurrence, and we want to split into rows. And then the quote character we can leave as none or double quotes. I wish they had a single quote option, because that would help here, but we can just leave it as none. Either one, it doesn't, because we don't have any double quotes in here, it's not gonna matter. So once I click this, you'll see here that now it's created multiple rows, one for each field type. So the next thing we want to do is we want to split these values out. So I'm going to right click again and go to split column by delimiter. And this time it's going to automatically select equal sign, because it sees that that's the only thing that's really there. But if it doesn't, you can just select it from there. And we want each occurrence, and now we want it to go into rows. Sorry, we want it to go into columns. And it's going to split it into two columns. Same thing here. We don't care about the quote character. So if we hit OK, so now this is kind of how the data shows up in REDCap in the database, where it's always a field value pair. So this is the field name and this is the value, and then the record ID. So we're getting there. So the next thing we want to do is we want to trim the values, because you can see here that record ID is all the way up against the edge here, but first name has a space. This has a space. So they all have spaces. So we can just select these two columns and click on the column heading, and we're going to click transform and trim. And that's going to just take the spaces away. And if you mess up, if you do something that you made a mistake, you can always come over here. These applied steps, it tracks everything. So if we can always go back. So if we want to delete the trim text, it'll take you back to the previous step. So you can always try it again, or whatever happens, you can fix it. So we're going to go back to trim. Now the next thing is, we don't want, like, for example, we have first name here, we have first name here, first name here. We want these to be, let me bring up the demo data just so you can see. Oh, I can't do it because I'm in Excel. You want basically the first column to be the record ID, and then you want the first row to be all of the field names, and then you want the data to be within those row and columns. So you want all the data for one record to be in one row, and then the next record to be the next row, and those kinds of things. So that's what we have to get to next. But we have to remove these single quotes. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on this and just, let's see, replace values. And then we're just going to type a single quote here. And then we're going to leave this blank. And we're just going to make sure that these aren't checked because we don't want the entire cell contents. We just want anytime the single quote character appears, we want to get rid of it. So we're going to hit OK. It's going to take all those out. We don't care that these are all different data types. So now our data is the way we want it, but it's not in the format that we want it. So the next thing we want to do is pivot the data and make it into a table format. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to select these two columns, and then we're going to click on transform up here. And then we're going to click on pivot column. And the column that we want our values is the second column here. So we're going to make sure that we click on that one, and then under the advanced options, we don't want any aggregate functions. So we don't care. We don't want to count or medium or anything like that. So we want to click don't aggregate because we actually want the values. And then when we click OK, it's going to put it all together. So now we have all the data in a table format. Now, we have two things that we have to fix. So right now we have two record ID columns. And the reason we kept this one for now is because we need to know how to split that out. Because this record ID was only in one field. And so there was no other connection to the other fields. The only connection was for this record column. But now that we have it broken up this way, we don't need this column anymore. So we can just right click and remove it. And then the other thing is we have checkboxes, and checkboxes in the logging show up differently than they are in the database. So if we look at the code book here, for race, the checkbox, it creates 6 different columns, and each option is separated by 3 underscores. So this is the actual field that's being stored in the database. And it's if the person is American Indian, then that value is just going to be 1 for when it's checked, because it's either checked or unchecked. Same thing here. This is going to be the field name, and then it's not 2, it's 1 because it's whether it's checked or unchecked. In the logging, you'll see here that it's showing race 6 and that it's checked. And down here, it's race 3 and 4, and they're checked. So we want to reformat these field names and these values. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and drag this over. I'm going to organize these, put these in order, and then I'm going to drag them over. And this is just me being picky. I'm going to move them in the order that they're in. The CSV doesn't care because REDCap's it's going to look at what the field name is, and it's going to put the data where it needs to go. But it's easier for me to just put all these together. So then I can just deal with them all at once. And if we had done that, because we could have made this change when the data was still in columns, but we would have had to run through and say, every value, for race 1, change it to this, race 2, change it to this. And now it's just easier to rename the columns one at a time. So I'm just going to do race, and it's 3 underscores and 1. And I'm just going to highlight this first bit because I'm just going to use that to copy and paste here. We'll say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we have our data. Oh, sorry. The last thing we have to do now is you can see here in all of these that it's checked or null. Oh, trying to select all these. There we go. So what we want to do now is we want to replace those check values with ones. So we're going to highlight all these columns here and we're going to right click in the column and we're going to say replace values. And this is checked and we're going to replace it with a 1. And now we want to match the entire cell contents. So now these are all 1s and now everything is set the way we want it. Now we have to get this data back into the spreadsheet so we can use it. And we do that by clicking on the home tab up here. And we're going to say close and load. And you can either, so close and load is just going to immediately default it back to the book that we're in. Close and load 2 is if you want, if there's like a specific file, if you're doing tables and you want it to show up on a different tab, this gives you more options, but simply clicking close and load will bring it in here. So now we have all of our data in the format that we need it in. And if we ever need to go back, if we need to change something, we click on the data tab here and click on queries and connections, and it's going to show the connections over here. Or there we go. Sorry, I was in the demo data. They look the same. Let me close that. So here's the data that we exported from the Power Query. And in the queries and connections here, you'll see we have the connect, there's no connection, but we have the queries. So if we double click on that, it'll open up the Power Query editor again, and all the steps are still there. So what I would recommend is saving this as a spreadsheet. I'll just say logging data formatted. And you want to save it as an XLSX because if you save it as a CSV, you lose all the stuff that you had created with the Power Query. That's what I found. So we want to save this because if we ever have to go back to it, all of the steps are still there, but we also need a CSV for migration. So we're going to save this as a CSV, and you could, name this like logging data for import or something like that. And it's going to complain that you have multiple sheets. It's because it automatically creates a new sheet when you when you pull the data from Power Query. You don't have to worry about that. As long as this is the first sheet in the workbook, this one's going to get deleted and we don't care about that one. We just want this one. So I'm going to go ahead and close it now. And if we open up the CSV for import, now this is what it looks like. It loses all the formatting because it's a CSV, and it renamed this to the sheet, the file name that we had. So now if we go back to REDCap and I go to the data import tool and we'll choose the file. And we'll upload it. Oh, that's when I had the, let's see. So this is what the name of the project was before. So I renamed the field because this was a really long project title. So I named it as Form 1. So I just got to grab this and fix it. That's the other thing too. If you have this formatted Excel and you change something here, it's those changes are not going to persist after, because this data is coming from somewhere else. And so you're not changing the source data. So I think if I did like John Doe here and saved it, I think if I close it and open it back up, it'll revert back to, oh, I guess not. It did it for me before because I kept trying to enter it, and it kept changing on me. Because I think if you go back to the queries and load it again, it will replace it. Because you can see here that the first name and last name are different. So if I just say close and load, there you go. So it's going to update that back to what it was. So don't make any edits here. If you do find something that you have incorrect, make the changes here in the file that's going to actually be uploaded, because the source, it's coming from that other logging CSV. All right, so I fixed that field name. And it's always good to look at the code book before, just to make sure that everything is the way you need it. So like we have record ID, first name, last name, email, gender, race. You want to make sure that your fields are what you need and they're not, because if you try to import it like we just found, if this is different, then it's going to complain.
And notice where it shows you the race field name is not in that first column with everything else. It's over in the checkbox area.
Right. Yeah, and then you don't have to worry about drop downs or radio buttons because they follow the format where this is the field name and then this is the value. The only thing that's different is the checkboxes. So I'm gonna save that and close it, and then go back to import. There we go. So now it's going to pull all that in. Because these were all deleted, they're going to be new records. It's going to pull all the data in. We're going to import here. Everything is good. If I go back to the record status dashboard, all of the data is there. If you click on this, all of the data is here. If we go to the logging now, we're going to have two instances of everything. So we've created, this is the import, and you can see here that it's through the import. I had ran it earlier, so this is the import as well. So you're going to have two instances of these records now. Now, one thing I want to point out is when you delete a record, the logging will keep track of the create record log entry. So if I just go to one of the records here, and we'll just go to record 5. And if I delete this record, when I go back to the logging, if I just want to look at record 5, or see now record 5 is not there, but so I can't filter on that. But you'll see here that there's a delete entry, and then there's the create record entry, and then there's the original create record entry. And you can also see that these are when I deleted it when I was testing it before the demo. But it's important to know that if you delete the record manually like that, it will continue to keep the logging entry for that record, that so you can still recover it essentially. But if you wipe out your data, so if you go to the other functionality tab and you say erase all data, if we go back to the logging, all of that is gone. It doesn't keep track of any create, any delete. It just wipes everything out and goes back to scratch, essentially. So if you ever do that, you can't get this information from the logging. We would have to do it from a database restore, and we would have to find it. We'd have to make sure that we had a backup for the day prior to that deletion. So this it's the reason I thought this would be good to demo is I don't think it's something that people should use all the time, but I feel like it's another tool that somebody could use. If they deleted data, there's another way for them to find it. There are some caveats to it. It's not going to track anything that's updated, but you can find that in here by using the update event. So you can kind of get data back if you need to. and it's in a format that's not really user friendly. So let me just go back to here because I can just import it again. And if we go back to the logging, did I not say yes? Oh, I'm running too fast. Let me go back there. I'll just close this. Uh, there we go. So then if we go back to the logging, you know, and you could, if you wanted to copy this and put it in a notepad, you could do that too. If you wanted to go back and manually enter these records, for something this small, it wouldn't be that bad to just have to sit there and go, okay, for record 5, these are the values. But if you had, hundreds of records and hundreds of fields, it might be good to be able to find a way to get all that data and massage it into a format that you can just input into Redcat. So I just thought that was another tool, and it's nice to explore, the functionalities of Excel and Power Query, to be able to massage that data. And from what I understand with Power Query, if you have, um, once you have these steps set up, let me go back to the data here. And I'm still learning Power Query too. I actually didn't really know anything about Power Query until I tried this. Um, So I think once you have these steps set up, you can also change the source. Um, so that way you're not having to do this every time. You could just load a new source. And if it's all coming from the same logging, you could just have it load a new source and basically run these steps for you automatically. But it's good to know the steps that you have to take and why you're doing the steps that you're doing. Because most of those steps that I talked about are going to apply to most projects because I tried to accommodate, all the different field types, anything that you're going to encounter. It's just that your project is going to be designed completely differently. I haven't messed with this in terms of like events, repeatable instances, because there's going to be some additional steps in here, maybe with like repeatable instances and what events and things like that. But this is just sort of a quick and dirty example on what you can do with Excel with a basic project, and at least you can see that the logging, might be a valuable place to recover data from. So, hopefully that helps. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have one more comment. In working with trying to recover some data for actually for somebody else, another person, they had done some, what they thought was great backing up, like downloading the data, downloading this and that. And what they ended up downloading was only the labels version of the export. And it's always useful to also have the export of the raw data because that actually gives you your field names if for some reason that is part of what you've lost.
Yeah, that's a good point.